What drives a person to cross the line from human to monster? Tonight, we dive deep into the darkest corners of America's history. 10 serial killers whose names still haunt nightmares, whose crimes shatter communities, and whose legacies force us to ask, how much evil can one human being hold? Number 10. Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer. In the 1980s and 1990s, women were disappearing near Seattle. Their bodies were later discovered in woods, fields, and along the Green River. For years, the killer remained a ghost. That ghost turned out to be Gary Ridgway, a man who worked in a truck factory, lived a quiet life, and blended into his community. Ridgway confessed to killing 71 women, though investigators believe the real number may be over 90. He targeted vulnerable women, strangled them, and dumped their bodies like trash. Cold, methodical, and remorseless, Ridgway admitted he kept killing because it was easy. With his arrest in 2001, the Green River Killer went down as one of the deadliest serial killers in U.S. history. Proof that evil doesn't always look like a monster. It can look like your neighbor, your coworker, the man you pass every day. At number 9 is Albert Fish, the Boogeyman. If there was ever a killer who embodied pure evil, it was Albert Fish. An elderly man with gray hair, he looked harmless, but his crimes were the stuff of nightmares. Fish targeted children, luring them away before subjecting them to torture, mutilation, and murder. His most infamous crime was the murder of Grace Budd in 1928. He not only killed her, but later wrote a graphic letter to her mother describing the act in chilling detail. He claimed he was possessed by demons, and investigators called him the real-life boogeyman. Even seasoned detectives broke down reading the horrors he committed. Fish was executed in the electric chair in 1936, but his name still sends shivers down the spine. At number 8, we have Dennis Rader, also known as BTK, bind, torture, kill. For decades, he lived a double life. By day, Dennis Rader was a church leader, a Boy Scout volunteer, and a family man. But by night, he was BTK, bind, torture, kill, the name he proudly gave himself. Between 1974 and 1991, Rader murdered 10 people in Kansas. He bound his victims, tortured them, and killed them with methodical precision. But what made BTK unique was his obsession with fame. He sent letters to police and newspapers, taunting them, demanding recognition for his crimes. For years, he vanished until his arrogance got the best of him. In 2004, he resurfaced, sending a floppy disk to investigators, not realizing it could be traced to his church computer. That mistake ended his reign of terror. Rader's story is a chilling reminder. Sometimes the monster is the man next door, the one waving politely as he mows his lawn. Number 7. Aileen Wuornos, America's female serial killer. Her story begins with a troubled childhood, abandonment, and abuse. By the time she was a teenager, Aileen Wuornos was living on the streets. Later, she turned to sex work, and it was there that her path of violence began. Between 1989 and 1990, Wuornos murdered 7 men in Florida, shooting them at close range. She claimed it was self-defense, that each man had tried to assault her. But prosecutors painted her as a cold-blooded killer who used robbery as her motive. Her case divided the nation. Was she a predator or a victim who snapped after a lifetime of trauma? Wuornos became one of America's most infamous female killers, executed by lethal injection in 2002. Her haunting story forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about society, justice, and what happens when the broken are pushed too far. At number 6 is Ed Gein, the butcher of Plainfield. Plainfield, Wisconsin, 1957. When police entered Ed Gein's farmhouse, they stumbled into a nightmare that would afterwards inspire movies like Psycho the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the Silence of the Lambs. Inside, they found chairs upholstered with human skin, bowls made from skulls, and even a suit Gain had stitched together from women's bodies. He had robbed graves, exhumed corpses, and killed at least 2 women to satisfy his twisted desires. Though Gain's body count was smaller than others on this list, the horror of his acts was unmatched. He blurred the line between reality and horror fiction, showing the world that sometimes truth is stranger and darker than anything Hollywood could invent. If this story is keeping you hooked, don't forget to like this video. It really helps the channel grow. And if you haven't already, subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss another deep dive into the world of true crime. In the 5th position is David Berkowitz, son of Sam. New York City, 1976. The city that never sleeps suddenly lived in fear. Young couples sitting in parked cars were gunned down by a mysterious killer. He called himself the son of Sam. David Berkowitz terrorized New York with a .44 caliber revolver, killing 6 people and wounding 7 others. He left taunting letters for the police, claiming a demon inside a dog commanded him to kill. Women changed their hairstyles to avoid being targeted, and couples stopped going out at night. The entire city was paralyzed by fear. When Berkowitz was finally caught, he confessed calmly. No rage, no remorse, just a chilling sense of satisfaction. His spree showed how one man, armed with delusions and a gun, could hold millions of people hostage in terror. Number 4. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. In the summer of 1985, fear gripped Los Angeles. Doors were locked, windows barred, and families huddled in terror. The reason? A killer was roaming free, striking at random, leaving behind a trail of blood. His name was Richard Ramirez, but the media called him the Night Stalker. Ramirez broke into homes in the dead of night, killing, assaulting, and sometimes leaving behind satanic symbols. His unpredictability made him especially terrifying. Anyone could be next. No one felt safe. He relished the fear, showing no remorse. In court, he flashed a pentagram drawn on his hand and declared allegiance to Satan. He was sentenced to death but died in prison decades later. The Night Stalker taught America that horror doesn't just live in movies. It can creep silently into your bedroom at 3 a.m. 3. John Wayne Gacy, the Killer Clown. Children loved him. He dressed as Pogo the Clown for parties, bringing joy and laughter. But behind the painted smile, John Wayne Gacy was living a double life as one of America's most prolific serial killers. Between 1972 and 1978, Gacy lured young men to his Chicago home with promises of work or money. Once inside, he handcuffed them, assaulted them, and strangled them. He buried 29 victims beneath his house and disposed of others in nearby rivers. Neighbors couldn't believe it. This was a man who ran a construction company, threw parties, and was even active in local politics. Yet under the floors of his home was a graveyard of boys and young men who never made a home. The scariest part? He was hiding in plain sight. A clown by day, a killer by night. Proof that evil can wear the brightest costume. At number 2 is Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee cannibal. In July 1991, police entered Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment and discovered something that would shock the world. Human remains stored in the freezer, preserved skulls, and a vat filled with acid. Dahmer had murdered 17 young men and boys between 1978 and 1991. He would lure victims home with the promise of money, photographs, or companionship. But once inside, they never left alive. Dahmer's crimes weren't just about murder. They involved dismemberment, necrophilia, and even cannibalism. What's chilling is how close he came to being caught, several times. On one occasion, a victim escaped and ran to police. But Dahmer convinced them it was just a lover's quarrel. The officers left, and Dahmer continued killing. His case forces us to ask, how many lives could have been saved if someone had looked just a little closer? Dahmer wasn't a monster hiding in the shadows. He lived in an ordinary apartment, blending into the neighborhood, while keeping hell locked behind his door. Number 1. Ted Bundy, the charming killer. He was handsome, intelligent, a law student with a winning smile. To the world, Ted Bundy looked like the boy next door. But behind the charm was a predator who preyed on women. Bundy would fake injuries, wearing a cast or walking on crutches, asking women for help loading something into his car. Once close enough, he struck, kidnapping, assaulting, and murdering his victims. By the time he was caught, Bundy confessed to killing 30 young women across multiple states in the 1970s, though the real number may never be known. What made Bundy terrifying wasn't just the brutality of his crimes. It was how ordinary he looked. He defended himself in court, flirted with the press, and even proposed marriage during his trial. He was executed in 1989, but his case leaves us with one haunting truth. Evil doesn't always come with a scary face. Sometimes it smiles right at you. These names live in infamy, not because we glorify them, but because they force us to confront the darkest truth about humanity. Evil doesn't always wear a mask. It walks among us, in classrooms, in neighborhoods, even behind a friendly smile. The question is, how do we recognize it before it strikes again? If this story kept you on edge, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another chilling true crime breakdown. And tell me in the comments, which of these cases shocked you the most? Your engagement helps this channel grow, and together we can keep these dark stories alive so history never forgets.